Jack Thornton stared out the viewport of the transport shuttle, watching as Earth became nothing more than a blue marble in the black expanse of space. He'd been given exactly 48 hours to pack up his life and report for duty as the newest medical officer aboard the Galactic Alliance flagship, the Benevolent Intervention. 48 hours to process that aliens were real, that humanity had just been invited to join some grand space coalition, and that apparently human doctors were in high demand. "Just peachy," he muttered, drumming his fingers against his medical kit. 4 years of med school, 3 years of residency, crippling student loans, and now I get to be the galaxy's guinea pig. The recruitment officer, a tall, spindly being with skin like polished copper and 4 arms, looked up from her tablet. "Pardon, Dr. Thornton, did you say something about a fruit?" "Figure of speech," Jack said, forcing a smile. "Just excited about this wonderful opportunity that I definitely volunteered for." The officer, Lieutenant Roz Curie according to her name badge, nodded enthusiastically, completely missing his sarcasm. "Oh yes, you should be quite honored. The Galactic Alliance has been observing Earth for decades, and your species' medical capabilities are quite remarkable, particularly your trauma response techniques." And this has nothing to do with the war you're losing against what were they called again? "The Kraxon Imperium," Roz Curie corrected, her antennae drooping slightly. "And we are not losing. We are strategically reassessing our position after several unexpected setbacks." "Right, military speak for getting our asses handed to us," Jack snorted. "Don't sugarcoat it, Lieutenant. I read the briefing packet. You guys need medics because yours keep getting killed." Roz Curie's copper skin flushed a deeper bronze. "Medical personnel losses have been regrettable. The Kraxon do not respect the sanctity of healers as civilized species do." Jack leaned back in his seat. "And yet here I am, drafted into your space navy because apparently human doctors are expendable." "Not expendable, valuable. Humans have a unique resilience that our medical personnel lack." "So I've heard, though nobody's been clear on what that actually means." The shuttle lurched as it docked with the enormous vessel that would be Jack's home for the foreseeable future. The Benevolent Intervention was massive, nearly 5 kilometers long, with a crew of over 15,000 beings from 24 species, and now 1 human. As Jack stepped through the airlock, he was greeted by a welcoming committee consisting of 3 aliens he couldn't begin to identify. The one in the middle, vaguely humanoid but with blue-gray skin and large, multifaceted eyes, stepped forward. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Thornton. I am Chief Medical Officer Ventic. These are my associates, Doctors Pelopi and Grix." He gestured to a short, round being covered in fine fur and a tall insectoid creature respectively. Jack nodded politely. "Nice to meet you all. Looking forward to learning about alien medicine." "And we are most eager to learn about human medical practices," Ventic said. "Particularly your emergency trauma protocols. Is it true humans can seal wounds using heat?" "You mean cauterization?" "Yeah, but it's not exactly standard practice anymore. We prefer sutures, synthetic adhesives, or regenerative therapies these." He was interrupted by an alarm blaring throughout the ship. "Attention all personnel," a calm voice announced over the intercom. "Kraxon vessels detected. Battle stations. Medical staff report to emergency stations. This is not a drill." Ventic's multifaceted eyes blinked rapidly. "It appears your orientation will have to wait, Dr. Thornton. Please follow me to the medical bay." "Hell of a first day," Jack muttered, tightening his grip on his kit. "Just peachy." The medical bay was chaos when they arrived. The ship shuddered from impact as Jack was led through a labyrinth of corridors by the increasingly agitated CMO. "The Kraxon should not be in this sector," Ventic was saying, his voice pitched higher than before. Our intelligence suggested they were concentrated near the Cygnus arm. Bad intel happens, Jack replied, stumbling as another impact rocked the ship. How can I help? They entered a large chamber filled with beds, most already occupied with injured crew. Doctors Pelopi and Grix were moving frantically between patients, attaching odd devices and administering treatments Jack didn't recognize. Observe first, Ventic instructed. Our physiology differs significantly from. The ship lurched violently, throwing both of them against a wall. Emergency lights flashed red as a new announcement blared. Hull breach on deck 14. Medical personnel requested immediately. Ventic's blue-gray skin paled to an ashen color. That's the engineering section. Dr. Grix, attend to the breach casualties. The insectoid doctor froze, mandibles clicking anxiously. Chief, I cannot. My respiratory system cannot handle depressurization risks. Dr. Pelopi. The furry doctor was trembling visibly. My species cannot function in high-stress combat situations, Chief. My autonomic system would shut down. Jack looked between the alien doctors in disbelief. Are you serious? There are injured people who need help. Ventic turned to Jack, his compound eyes blinking rapidly. Dr. Thornton, perhaps you could. Oh, for fine. Point me in the right direction. Minutes later, Jack was sprinting down a corridor with a medical kit and an alien nurse who introduced herself as Trill. She was humanoid but with pale green skin and delicate tendrils instead of hair. The breach has been sealed, she informed him as they ran, but there are multiple casualties. Engineering was hit directly. What kind of injury should I expect? Blast trauma, lacerations, potentially toxic exposure from damaged systems. Great, business as usual then. When they arrived at engineering, Jack's stomach dropped. The scene was like a battlefield triage unit. At least 20 crew members were scattered across the floor, many clearly injured. 3 Kraxon soldiers, massive reptilian humanoids with armored exoskeletons, lay dead near a sealed bulkhead. They boarded before we sealed the breach, Trill explained, her voice quavering. Jack knelt beside the nearest victim, a young engineer with severe lacerations across her torso. I need pressure bandages, antiseptic, and whatever you use for pain management. As Jack worked to stabilize the first patient, he noticed something strange. Trill and the other medical staff were maintaining distance from the injured, using long-handled instruments to treat wounds. What are you doing? He asked, hands covered in blue alien blood as he sutured a gash. Get in here and help me. Trill blinked in confusion. We are helping. This is standard medical protocol. Standard? You're 6 feet away from your patients. Physical contact increases risk of sympathetic response. Medical personnel must maintain emotional distance to function effectively. Jack stared at her incredulously before returning to his work. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. How do you perform surgery? With automated systems and remote manipulators, she replied as if it were obvious. Before Jack could respond, the ship shuddered again. The lights flickered, and a horrifying screech of tearing metal echoed through the deck. A previously sealed door buckled inward as something massive slammed against it. They're breaking through, someone shouted. The medical staff began retreating immediately, their faces masks of terror. Trill tugged at Jack's sleeve. Doctor, we must evacuate. Medical personnel are non-combatants. Jack looked around frantically. The injured engineers couldn't be moved quickly, and the security teams were nowhere in sight. The door buckled again. Screw that, he muttered, grabbing a nearby toolkit. He rummaged through it, finding a plasma torch used for cutting whole metal. Get the patients who can move out of here. I'll buy you some time. Doctor, what are you doing? Trill's eyes widened in horror. Medical personnel cannot engage in combat. Watch me. When the door finally gave way and 3 hulking Kraxan soldiers burst through, they weren't met with cowering medical staff. They were met with an angry human doctor wielding an improvised flamethrower made from a plasma torch and a canister of medical ethanol. I've had a really bad first day, Jack growled as he unleashed a stream of blue flame directly into the lead Kraxan's face. And you're making it worse. The alien screamed in pain and surprise as Jack charged forward, swinging the flaming torch like a madman. He grabbed a heavy wrench with his free hand and brought it down on the second Kraxan's knee joint with a sickening crack. By the time security forces arrived 3 minutes later, they found Jack Thornton, human medic, standing over 3 incapacitated Kraxan soldiers, covered in their yellowish blood. "What took you so long?" he asked the shocked security team, wiping alien gore from his face. "I've got patients to treat." Word spread quickly through the benevolent intervention. Within hours, everyone had heard about the human medic who had not only treated 12 severely injured engineers, but had also single-handedly fought off a Kraxan boarding party using nothing but medical supplies and engineering tools. Jack, meanwhile, was oblivious to his newfound fame as he finished treating the last of the engineering casualties in the main medical bay. "There you go," he told the insectoid engineer whose exoskeleton he'd just repaired using a combination of medical resin and what appeared to be alien superglue. "Try not to put too much weight on it for a few days." The engineer clicked appreciatively and scuttled away, passing Chief Medical Officer Ventic, who approached with an unreadable expression on his alien face. "Dr. Thornton," Ventic said, his multifaceted eyes reflecting Jack's tired face a dozen times over. "I must speak with you regarding the incident in engineering." Jack sighed, setting down his instruments. "Look, if you're going to reprimand me for leaving my post or whatever, can it wait until I've had some sleep? It's been 20 hours since I came aboard, and I've spent most of that time elbow deep in various colors of blood." "Reprimand you?" Ventic's antennae twitched in what Jack was beginning to recognize as confusion. "No, Doctor. The captain wishes to commend you. Your actions saved 13 lives and prevented the Kraxan from accessing the ship's core systems." "Oh." Jack blinked in surprise. "Well, that's unexpected." "However," Ventic continued, lowering his voice, "many crew members are disturbed by your methods." "My methods? You mean basic trauma care?" "No, your violent response to the Kraxan intruders." Jack stared at him. "They were trying to kill us. What was I supposed to do? Ask them nicely to stop?" Medical personnel throughout the Galactic Alliance are strictly non-combatants. It is a biological imperative for most species who enter healing professions. The capacity to cause harm and the capacity to heal are neurologically incompatible. "That's ridiculous," Jack scoffed. "On Earth, some of our best trauma surgeons are military veterans. Knowing how something breaks helps you understand how to fix it." Ventic's skin rippled in what might have been the alien equivalent of a shudder. This concept is unsettling to many. There is already talk among the crew. "What kind of talk?" "Some suggest humans might be more primitive than initially assessed. Others are fascinated by your adaptive capabilities." Jack ran a hand through his hair, leaving it sticking up at odd angles. "So I'm either a savage or a circus act. Terrific." "There is more," Ventic added hesitantly. "Commander Nix Vala, our security chief, has requested a full psychological evaluation before you are allowed to continue medical duties." "You've got to be kidding me." "The commander is concerned about your predilections." "My what now?" "Your apparent comfort with violence." The commander reviewed the security footage from engineering. You appeared to be smiling while attacking the Kraxan soldiers. Jack thought back to the adrenaline-fueled minutes in engineering. Had he been smiling? Possibly. Combat-induced stress response did weird things to facial muscles. It wasn't enjoyment, he explained, trying to keep his frustration in check. Humans have a physiological response to danger: adrenaline, increased heart rate, heightened awareness. Sometimes it manifests as expressions that might be misinterpreted. Ventic didn't look convinced. Nevertheless, Commander Nix Vala wishes to meet with you. As if summoned by her name, the doors to the medical bay slid open, and in walked one of the most intimidating beings Jack had ever seen. Commander Nix Vala stood over 7 feet tall, with 4 muscular arms and skin that seemed to be composed of overlapping plates like armor. Her face was vaguely feline, with slitted yellow eyes that locked onto Jack immediately. "Dr. Thornton," she rumbled, voice deep and resonant. "I understand you've had an eventful first day." Jack straightened up, suddenly acutely aware that he was still covered in alien blood and probably looked like hell. "You could say that, Commander." "Walk with me." It wasn't a request. As they left the medical bay, Jack noticed crew members stopping to stare as they passed. Some looked awestruck, others wary. A few even changed course to avoid walking near him. "You've made quite an impression," Nix Vala observed, her 4 arms clasped behind her back. Not many beings face Kraxan soldiers in hand-to-hand combat and live to tell the tale. "I wouldn't call it hand-to-hand, more like hand-to-improvised weapon to reptile face." One corner of the commander's mouth twitched. "Indeed, creative use of medical ethanol. Though I'm curious why our human allies didn't mention this particular skill set when recommending medical personnel." "Probably because it's not in our job description," Jack replied. "Earth doctors take an oath to do no harm. What happened in engineering was an extreme circumstance. Yet you adapted remarkably quickly to that extreme circumstance." Nix Vala stopped walking and turned to face him fully. 3 trained Kraxan warriors dead. 17 casualties treated effectively despite having no prior experience with non-human physiology. And all with equipment you'd never seen before today. Jack shrugged uncomfortably. "I'm good at improvising." "So it seems." Her yellow eyes narrowed. "Tell me, Dr. Thornton, are all human medics capable of this improvisation?" "Most doctors I know can work under pressure, if that's what you're asking." "And the combat abilities?" Jack hesitated. "That depends on the individual. But humans are adaptable. When threatened, we can be resourceful." "Resourceful," Nix Vala repeated, as if testing the word. "A fascinating euphemism." She resumed walking. "The captain has requested your presence at tomorrow's strategy meeting. It seems your resourcefulness may be valuable in our ongoing conflict with the Kraxan." "Wait, what? I'm a doctor, not a tactical advisor." "Perhaps. But you've demonstrated capabilities that challenge our understanding of what a medical officer can be." She paused at a door. "These are your quarters. I suggest you rest. Tomorrow promises to be another interesting day." As the commander walked away, Jack stared after her with growing unease. Something told him he wasn't going to be spending much time practicing standard medicine on this ship. The strategy meeting was held in a circular chamber with a holographic display showing a slowly rotating planet at its center. Jack felt distinctly out of place among the uniformed officers, especially when Captain Thalos, a being composed of what appeared to be living crystal, gestured for him to take a seat near the command staff. "Dr. Thornton," the captain began, her voice creating harmonic resonances in the air. "Thank you for joining us. Commander Nix Vala speaks highly of your unconventional talents." Jack shot the security chief a look. "Happy to help, Captain, but I'm not sure what I'm doing here. I'm just a doctor." Precisely, Captain Thalos replied. The hologram zoomed in to show a complex nestled in a mountain range. This is a Craxon medical research facility on Epsilon Indi IV. Intelligence suggests they're developing biological weapons there. And you want my medical opinion? Commander Nix Vala leaned forward. We need to infiltrate the facility. Previous attempts have failed because our operatives couldn't pass as medical personnel convincingly enough. Jack's eyes widened as realization dawned. Oh no, no. You want me to go in there? Into an enemy base? Your medical knowledge makes you the perfect infiltrator, the captain explained. You understand treatment protocols that our intelligence operatives cannot hope to replicate. But I don't know anything about Craxon medicine. You demonstrated remarkable adaptability with alien physiology yesterday, Nix Vala countered. And you won't be alone. A small team will accompany you disguised as prisoners being brought for experimentation. Jack looked around the table, hoping someone would point out the insanity of sending an untrained human doctor on a covert mission into enemy territory. Instead, he found only expectant faces. This is a terrible idea, he muttered. But I'm guessing I don't have much choice. The mission launches in 6 hours, Captain Thalos announced. Commander Nix Vala will brief you on the details. 6 hours later, Jack found himself aboard a small shuttle disguised as a Craxon transport, wearing a stolen enemy medical officer's uniform that chafed in places he didn't want to think about. With him were 3 Alliance operatives: Krill, a shapeshifter who was impersonating a Craxon guard; Dex, a demolitions expert disguised as a prisoner; and Lonnie Yaglian, a communications specialist also posing as a captive. Remember, Krill instructed as they approached the facility, your Dr. Zex Thran, recently transferred from the Imperial Medical Academy. You're arrogant, dismissive of prisoners, and enthusiastic about experimental procedures. So basically the worst kind of doctor. Got it. Just follow my lead and try not to speak unless necessary, Krill replied, his features rippling slightly before settling back into the reptilian visage of a Craxon. The landing was smooth, but Jack's nerves were anything but as they disembarked. 2 actual Craxon guards approached, eyeing the new arrivals with suspicion. Transfer from Central Command, Krill grunted in the harsh Craxon language, which Jack's translator rendered in his ear. 1 doctor, 2 test subjects. The guards examined their documentation. We weren't notified of any transfer today. Imperial High Command doesn't tell you everything, Krill snapped. The doctor has priority clearance for the Chimera project. At the mention of Chimera, the guards stiffened and became markedly more cooperative. They waved the group through with minimal further questioning. What's this Chimera project? Jack whispered to Lonnie as they were escorted into the facility. We don't know, she replied quietly. That's partly why we're here. The facility was a labyrinth of sterile corridors and secured doors. Jack tried to memorize their route as they were led deeper into the complex. Eventually, they reached a central laboratory area where several Craxon scientists were working on what appeared to be biological samples. Wait here, 1 guard instructed. The research director will want to meet the new doctor personally. As soon as they were alone, Dex whispered, Lonnie, start gathering data. Doc, look scientific and keep watch. Krill and I will find the central research database. Jack nodded, moving to examine some nearby equipment while trying to look like he knew what he was doing. The technology was advanced but recognizable enough: centrifuges, incubators, gene sequencers. Whatever the Craxon were developing, it involved sophisticated bioengineering. He was studying a culture of glowing blue cells when a cold voice behind him made him freeze. You handle our specimens with unusual familiarity, Dr. Zex Thran. Jack turned slowly to face a Kraxon scientist, taller than the guards and wearing an elaborate headpiece that seemed to denote rank. Director K. Vex, Jack improvised, inclining his head slightly. Your reputation precedes you. The director's slitted eyes narrowed. Curious. I don't recall my name being mentioned. Shit. All who serve the Empire know of your groundbreaking work, Jack recovered smoothly. The Chimera Project is spoken of even at the Academy. The director seemed mollified, if still suspicious. Indeed. And what specialty brings you to my facility, Doctor? Jack searched his memory for the briefing details. Xenoadaptation protocols. My research suggests certain improvements to your current methodologies. Is that so? The director's forked tongue flicked out briefly. Perhaps you'd care to demonstrate your expertise. We have a fresh subject awaiting preliminary assessment. Before Jack could respond, an alarm blared throughout the facility. The director's communicator buzzed, and after a brief exchange, his expression darkened. Intruders detected in the secure data center, he hissed. Security Protocol Omega initiated. Double shit. Director, I can help secure the laboratory specimens, Jack offered, desperately trying to maintain his cover. That won't be necessary. The director reached for what was clearly a weapon. Especially since there is no Dr. Zex Thran assigned to this facility. Triple shit. Jack reacted instinctively, grabbing a nearby container of what he hoped wasn't too hazardous and hurling it at the director's face. The vial shattered, splashing the Kraxon with a viscous purple liquid that immediately began smoking where it contacted scales. The director howled in pain, clawing at his face as Jack bolted for the exit. In the corridor, he ran straight into Lonnie, who was sprinting in his direction. Cover blown. He shouted unnecessarily. Where's Dex and Krill? Data center, 2 levels down. She tossed him a small device. Explosives. Dex said to start the diversion now. Jack barely had time to process this before armed guards appeared at both ends of the corridor. Acting on instinct, he dragged Lonnie into a nearby laboratory and barricaded the door. Some medic I am, he muttered, examining the explosive device. Any idea how this works? Push the red button, throw, and run like hell, Lonnie replied, gathering equipment from around the lab. But first, help me with this. She was hastily combining chemicals in a large container. Smoke bomb, she explained. Should give us cover to reach the others. Jack nodded, searching the lab for anything useful. His eyes lit on a cabinet marked with what his translator identified as a biohazard symbol. I have an idea, he said, pulling on protective gloves. But you're probably not going to like it. 5 minutes later, the laboratory door burst open as guards finally broke through. They were met with a thick cloud of acrid smoke and, more surprisingly, a rain of glass vials containing various Kraxon pathogens. By the time they realized what was happening, Jack and Lonnie were 2 corridors away, having used the environmental suits they'd found to protect themselves during their escape. That was insane. Lonnie coughed as they discarded the contaminated outer suits. You just weaponized their own bioweapons against them. Technically, I just created a distraction, Jack corrected. And they're the ones who built the weapons in the first place. They reached the data center to find Dex and Krill engaged in a firefight with more guards. Dex was wounded, bleeding from a gash across his shoulder. About time. Krill shouted, his disguise partially melted away to reveal his true form. Please tell me you have an extraction plan. Working on it, Jack replied, dragging Dex behind cover and examining his wound. Did you get what we came for? Dex nodded weakly, holding up a data crystal. Everything on Project Chimera. Not good, Doc. They're weaponizing medics. They're what? No time. Krill fired another burst at the advancing guards. How do we get out of here? Jack looked around frantically, mind racing. His eyes landed on a maintenance shaft. There, it should lead to the ventilation system. Great plan, except for one detail, Lonnie pointed out. Once we're in there, the whole facility will just pump in toxins to flush us out. Not if they can't control their systems, Jack grinned, pulling out the explosive device she'd given him earlier. Dex, where should I put this to cause maximum disruption but minimum structural damage? The demolitions expert gestured weakly to a bank of servers. Third cabinet from the left. It'll fry their environmental controls but leave the structural integrity intact. Jack nodded, setting the charge. Everyone to the shaft. On my mark, go. The resulting chaos was enough to cover their escape through the ventilation system and eventually to an emergency exit. By the time they reached their hidden backup shuttle, all four were injured, exhausted, and in Jack's case, covered head to toe in various colors of alien blood, most of it not his own. Some medic I turned out to be, he panted as they lifted off, enemy fire pinging harmlessly off their shields. Pretty sure the do no harm part of my oath is in tatters. You kidding? Dex managed weakly from where Jack had stabilized his wound. You're the best combat medic I've ever seen. That's the problem, Jack replied grimly. I'm not supposed to be a combat anything. The debriefing aboard the Benevolent Intervention was not going well. Captain Thalos, Commander Nixvala, Chief Medical Officer Ventic, and 3 other high-ranking officers Jack didn't recognize sat around a conference table, staring at him with expressions ranging from fascination to horror. Let me understand this correctly, the captain said, her crystalline form refracting light as she shifted position. You not only exposed an entire Kraxon research facility to multiple biohazardous agents, only the ones they were already working with, Jack interjected. But you also destroyed their central environmental control system, incapacitated 14 guards using medical equipment, and diagnosed the facility director with a rare scale condition while simultaneously blinding him with corrosive chemicals. Jack cleared his throat uncomfortably. The diagnosis was incidental, and the blindness is probably temporary. Commander Nixvala leaned forward, all 4 of her arms folded on the table. Dr. Thornton, while I appreciate results, your methods are concerning. You were sent to gather intelligence, not wage a one-man war. With all due respect, Commander, the mission went sideways the moment we landed. I improvised. By creating a level 4 biohazard situation? It worked, didn't it? We got the data on Project Chimera, and everyone on our team made it back alive. Chief Medical Officer Ventic, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. That is precisely what troubles us, Dr. Thornton. Your willingness to cause harm seems at odds with your role as a healer. Jack threw up his hands in exasperation. What was I supposed to do? Let them capture us. Execute us. I made sure our team survived. Yet, what cost to your principles? Ventic pressed. Throughout the Galactic Alliance, medical practitioners are physiologically incapable of inflicting harm. It is a neurological imperative tied to the development of healing abilities. Wait, what? Jack paused, processing this information. Are you saying that in every other species, doctors physically can't hurt people? Of course, Ventic replied as if it were obvious. The neural pathways that allow for aggressive action and those that enable healing are mutually exclusive. One cannot develop both. Jack stared at him. That's not how humans work. At all. Explain, Captain Tholos commanded. Human doctors aren't pacifists by biology. We're doctors by choice, training, and ethical commitment. Physically, we're just as capable of violence as any other human. A murmur ran through the assembled officers. Nix Vala's expression was particularly intense. "You mean to tell us," she said slowly, "that human medical personnel retain full combat capabilities?" "Well, yes, some of our best combat medics are in the military. They're trained to both heal and fight if necessary." "This changes things," the captain said, exchanging glances with her officers. "The Kraxon data you recovered indicates they've been attempting to engineer medical personnel capable of combat functions. Project Chimera is their attempt to create medics who can also serve as weapons on the battlefield. They've been failing," Commander Nix Vala added, "because they've been trying to override deep biological imperatives in their test subjects. The results have been unstable at best, monstrous at worst." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. And then humans show up, naturally able to do what they've been trying to engineer. Precisely. The captain's crystalline form shifted in what Jack was beginning to recognize as her version of a nod. "Dr. Thornton, I believe we owe you an apology. We misinterpreted your actions because we failed to understand this fundamental difference between our species. So I'm not going to be court-martialed for violating medical ethics." "On the contrary," Nix Vala replied, "the Alliance High Command will be very interested in this revelation. Human medical personnel could revolutionize our approach to combat medicine." Jack frowned. "I'm not sure how I feel about that. I became a doctor to save lives, not take them. Yet when necessary, you proved capable of both," the commander pointed out. "That versatility is precisely what gives humans an advantage." "It's not an advantage I particularly want to exploit," Jack muttered. Captain Thalos rose, signaling the end of the debriefing. "Dr. Thornton, I'm assigning you to work with Commander Nix Vala to develop new protocols for human medical personnel in combat situations. If the Kraxon learn of humanity's natural dual capability, they will undoubtedly target Earth for further research." Jack stood as well, suddenly feeling the weight of responsibility for his entire species. "And if I refuse?" "That is your right," the captain conceded. "But consider this, your knowledge could help protect both your homeworld and save countless Alliance lives." As the officers filed out, Chief Medical Officer Ventic lingered behind. Once they were alone, he approached Jack with what appeared to be genuine curiosity. "Dr. Thornton, may I ask a personal question?" "Sure, why not? Today's been weird enough already. If humans can both heal and harm, how do you decide which path to take in any given moment?" Jack considered this carefully. "It's choice, Ventic. Ethics. Humans have the capacity for both creation and destruction, kindness and cruelty. What makes us who we are isn't our capabilities, but our choices." "Fascinating," the alien doctor murmured. "And terrifying." Jack couldn't help but agree with both assessments. 3 months later, Jack Thornton stood before a class of 20 human medical personnel newly recruited to the Galactic Alliance. Behind him was a sign that read Combat Medic Training Program, and beside him stood Commander Nix Vala, looking as intimidating as ever. "Welcome to the first day of what will undoubtedly be the strangest medical training you've ever received," Jack began. "I'm Dr. Jack Thornton, and 6 months ago I was just a trauma surgeon in Chicago. Now I'm apparently the Alliance's expert on dual-function medical protocol, which is a fancy way of saying doctors who can also kick ass when necessary." A ripple of nervous laughter ran through the group. "Let me be clear about something," Jack continued, his tone growing serious. "This program isn't about turning you into soldiers. You're doctors first and foremost. Your primary mission will always be to save lives. But the reality is, we're in a war with an enemy that doesn't respect the sanctity of medical personnel." He gestured to Commander Nix Vala, who stepped forward. The Kraxon Imperium continues its efforts to create their own combat medics, she explained. Our intelligence suggests they've increased their research efforts since learning of humanity's natural dual capability. This makes Earth a potential target. Murmurs of concern spread through the class. Which is why, Jack added, we're creating this program, not just to help the Alliance but to protect our homeworld. By working together, we can develop ethical protocols for situations where medical personnel must defend themselves or their patients. After the orientation concluded and the recruits were dismissed for the day, Nix Vala turned to Jack with what he'd learned to recognize as her version of a smile. You've come a long way from the reluctant recruit who arrived covered in his own vomit after his first FTL jump. Jack groaned. I thought we agreed never to mention that again. I made no such agreement. She gestured toward the exit. The captain would like to speak with you before tomorrow's practical demonstration.